Edwin Mercer first noticed the path because it felt older than the land around it. He had moved to Lower Slaughers in late autumn, when the village had already begun to settle into itself. The tourists were fewer, the lanes quieter, the river slower beneath its stone bridges. Edwin welcomed the stillness. After years in towns where every street seemed to change faster than memory could keep up, he liked the sense that things here remained where they were put. The footpath ran behind the cottage he rented, slipping between hedges and fields before climbing gently toward higher ground. It was not marked clearly on the map he kept folded by the door. It appeared as a dotted line, faint and uncertain, as though the cartographer had not been entirely convinced it belonged there. Edwin walked it most evenings. Sometimes he set out just before dusk, when the fields still held the day's warmth and the river below the village reflected a pale, thinning sky. Other times he waited until night had settled more firmly, when the cottages lay quiet behind him and the path ahead seemed to offer itself willingly, as though relieved to be used again. Edwin noticed that his thoughts grew simpler once he stepped onto the track. Concerns that had followed him all day loosened their hold, replaced by the small, steady work of placing one foot after another. The path did not rush him. It accepted whatever pace he brought and returned it unchanged. At first, he told himself it was for exercise or fresh air, but gradually he realized he liked the way the path carried him forward without asking very much in return. The ground beneath his boots was firm, worn smooth by use. The hedges leaned inward, but not enough to crowd him. Even in low light, the way ahead seemed clear. The path always led him toward Stow-on-the-Wold. He did not intend to walk that far. He rarely reached the town itself. Instead, he would follow the route for a while, then turn back when the light faded or the air cooled. Yet, no matter how far he went, the path seemed content, as though it had been waiting for him to step onto it again. One evening, as he paused beside a field gate, Edwin noticed something strange. There were no footprints ahead of him. The grass on either side of the path bore the marks of animals and walkers alike. But the pale strip of earth itself lay undisturbed, smooth and unbroken, as though nothing had passed along it for some time. Edwin frowned, then looked back the way he had come. Behind him, his own footprints faded quickly, already softening into the ground. The path, he realized, did not hold on to marks for long. He thought nothing more of it. It was only later, after several weeks of walking the same route, that Edwin began to feel a faint pull, not forward exactly, but backward, a sense that the path knew where it was going, regardless of whether he did. One night, as he returned home later than usual, he found himself walking more slowly, his steps falling into an unfamiliar rhythm. It felt ceremonial, though he could not have said why. He kept his eyes on the pale strip ahead, noticing how it curved gently, how it avoided the lowest ground, how it seemed to choose the easiest passage through the land. He became aware, with a quiet certainty, that the path did not exist for the living. The thought did not frighten him. It simply settled into place. Edwin remembered something he had read once years ago. A passing reference to old funeral routes, paths used to carry the dead from outlying villages to their nearest churchyards. Corpse roads, they had been called. Routes walked so often by bearers and mourners that they became fixed, not just in the land, but in memory. Once walked, always remembered. That night, as Edwin turned back toward Lower Slaughers, he felt a brief resistance beneath his feet, as though the ground itself were surprised by the change of direction. The following evening, he did not turn back. He walked until the fields widened and the land lifted, until the glow of distant lights suggested the edge of Stow-on-the-Wold. He stopped before reaching the town, standing quietly as the path narrowed beneath him. For the first time, he sensed that he was not walking alone. There was no sound of footsteps, no breath at his shoulder. Instead, there was a presence, a steadiness, as though others moved with him at a pace just slower than his own. Edwin felt no fear, only an odd sense of courtesy, as though he were expected to keep his place. He became acutely aware of spacing, the instinctive courtesy of keeping distance, of not stepping too close or lagging behind. His pace adjusted without conscious effort, slowing slightly, then settling. It felt important not to hurry, though he could not have explained why. Edwin realized then that the path did not merely guide direction, it governed behavior. It asked for steadiness, for attention, for respect. Those who walked it did so on its terms, whether they knew it or not. He stepped aside instinctively, moving to the edge of the path. Nothing passed him, but the sensation lingered. Over the next few days, Edwin noticed changes. Small ones, at first. The path seemed clearer at dusk than it did by daylight. Its pale surface caught the fading light, while the surrounding grass darkened. More than once, Edwin found himself stepping onto it without quite remembering leaving the cottage. On one such evening, he heard a sound he could not place. It was a low creak, followed by the soft scrape of wood against earth. Edwin slowed, listening. The sound did not come from behind him, nor ahead. It seemed to rise from the path itself, like an echo remembered rather than heard. He understood then what he was sensing. The path remembered weight, not footsteps exactly, but burden. The steady, measured strain of men carrying something carefully between them. The way a body changes the rhythm of a walk, demands attention, slows every movement. Edwin stopped. For a long moment he stood with his head bowed, aware of the faint press of something passing him, close enough that he felt the air shift. He did not look up. It seemed impolite to do so. When he reached the turning point that usually sent him home, Edwin found he could not bring himself to leave the path. Instead, he continued towards Stow-on-the-Wold. The churchyard lay quiet when he arrived, its stones pale in the low light. Edwin did not enter. He stopped at the edge, standing where the path seemed to loosen its hold on him at last. He felt an unmistakable sense of arrival. That night, he slept deeply. After that, the path changed. It no longer drew him forward so insistently. He could turn back without resistance. The sense of company faded. Yet Edwin knew without doubt that the path remained what it had always been, a way remembered. Even now, Edwin suspected that if he were to walk the path at the wrong pace, too fast, too light, it would feel different beneath his feet, not hostile but closed, as though withholding something. The thought did not trouble him. He had learned, after all, that some routes reveal themselves only when approached in the proper manner. Weeks later, while speaking to a neighbor, Edwin mentioned his evening walks. "There's an old route that way," the man said casually. "Used to carry the dead up to Stow before we had our own ground. Folk don't talk about it much." Edwin nodded, as though this confirmed something he already knew. He walked the path less often after that, but when he did, he kept to the center, careful not to hurry, careful not to break the rhythm. And sometimes, when the air is still and the light is low, the path grows pale again beneath his feet. Not because it wishes to be walked, but because it remembers how. Please subscribe to this channel to be alerted to the next episode of Ghosts of the Cotswolds.